This presentation is about the first activity in the design research process. It's about explicating problems, about analyzing, explaining, and formulating practical problems in design research. Let's first recall the definition of a problem. A problem is a gap between the present state and the desirable state as it is perceived or experienced by participants in a practice. So, for example, the managers of a company could state that the problem is that our customers complain too much, and this can be seen as there being a present state, the customers file a lot of complaints, and there is a desirable state, the customers file only a few complaints, and the problem is the gap between these two states. Explicate problem can be seen as a sub-process of the entire design research process. So let's start with an overview of this sub-process. Explicate problem is the first activity in the design research process. Here you start with an initial problem and you try to explicate it, to analyze it, investigate it, make it clearer and more precise, maybe even reframe the problem. And thereby you generate an explicated problem that provides input to other activities in the research process, in particular for defining requirements. The overall question to answer this activity is: what is the problem experienced by some stakeholders of a practice, and why is it important? The point is that initially stakeholders often have quite a vague understanding of the problem they perceive or experience. And this vagueness means that it is difficult to address the problem and to assess whether you have succeeded in solving the problem. So before starting design, you need to more deeply understand what the problem is about. You need to analyze it and investigate it and find what components the problem includes and so on. Only then will you be able to really address the problem. So you start with an initial problem that might be vague and unclear. You transform it into an explicated problem that is more clear and precise. And for doing so, there are 3 sub-activities: define precisely, position and justify, find root causes. And we're gonna look into each one of these. The sub-activity define precisely is about reducing ambiguity. It's about delimiting and formulating the problem so that all stakeholders understand it in the same way. Making a problem definition more precise is about making it less ambiguous so that people understand and interpret it in the same way. It shouldn't be possible to interpret the problem definition in many different ways. And this is important because people will be able to work together on a problem only if they have the same understanding of it. Here is an example of an initial problem with an imprecise problem definition. The medical treatments are not satisfactory. This problem definition, is very open for interpretation, because a treatment can be unsatisfactory in many different ways. So what is really meant here? How is the treatment unsatisfactory? Here are a few ways in which the problem definition can be made more precise. The medical treatments don't make the patients healthier, so the treatments don't succeed in fulfilling their goals. Or the medical treatments are very expensive, so a lot of resources are required in order to carry out the treatments. Or the medical treatments cause the patients a lot of pain, so there are undesirable side effects. These are some ways in which we can make this problem definition more precise, and certainly there are many other different ways of doing so. Here is a small exercise. Please have a look at this problem definition. Our customer service is unsatisfactory. This one is clearly also very imprecise. And please take a minute or so and try to find a few ways in which to make it more precise before you proceed to the next slide. And here are some ways of making this problem definition more precise, and many more exist. But are precise problem definitions always better than imprecise ones? In principle, the answer is yes. More precise definitions help people to arrive at a common view so they can work together. And precise definitions can make problems easier to address. But there are also risks. In particular, there is a risk that when making a definition more precise, you miss the target. Look at the top right quadrant, where each cross represents one person's view of the problem. It's precise here. Everyone views the problem in the same way, but it isn't really the right problem. It may sometimes be better to be a bit loose, as in the lower left quadrant. People have different views, but they all zoom in on the right problem. Being somewhat loose and not so narrow can also help to find innovative solutions.